Hi, how you doing? Boy, it's brutally cold outside. Time to go to Florida. If only I had the funds to go to Florida. It was like, why? It's so cheap. It's like, well, I could drive down there, which is hellish. Yeah, gas is really high right now. If I flew down there, people say, well, you got a place to stay in Florida? It's like, yeah, but I have to get a car rental. Car rentals are really expensive this time of year. I'm going to edit that out of this video. That's perfectly okay. I don't know why I was talking about that. Let's talk about Esse versus Essentia. The things that people don't understand. People love to talk about perish or death. Say, what happens? This is the question, especially in live stream. I keep getting all the time because I can't find the answers in religion. I wonder why, because there are no answers there. I'll edit that out of this video also because I could possibly offend somebody. You say, what happens when we die? My answer to that always is, and logically so, it must be the case, is what makes you think you are that which dies? Yeah? People talk about death, what they're talking about is perishing. But what they're actually talking about, and they never make acknowledgement of, is that perish regarding the persona non grata, that thing you see when you're brushing your teeth, yeah, is the breakup of two or more things. Yeah, the harmony between those two things, the ancient Greeks, the Pythagoreans specifically, and who knows before them, called yugata. It's the reason I have yugata actually tattooed on my knuckles there. Yeah, this perfect harmony between two things. Now, it takes thousands of little components for this inexpensive $60 Chinese-made Baofeng radio to work. Yeah, I used to be a ham radio operator. Had HF rig, used to listen to HF. I still have a lot of shortwave receivers. Yeah. What is the breakup?
Around the region, it was clear with a temperature of...
Now, the radio analogy is not perfect, but it's the most perfect analogy that I could ever come up with. There's not a more perfect one because it works on 1,000,000 different levels. It's fascinating. Yeah. The broadcast that actually comes out of the speaker is not the signal. Yeah, that broadcast is analogous to life, right? It's processed by the consubstantiality thereof. All the little resistors, capacitors, analog to digital converters, which do their own interpolation of the signal. Yeah? And when the battery dies, or if I step on it, or if I drop it and things don't work anymore and I turn it on, it's like, whoops, it's dead. Do you think, it's just a serious question, honestly, before getting onto this video. And why doesn't anybody dedicate any intellectual, energy towards thinking about it? Do you really think that there's a signal in this radio? Or is a signal everywhere being tuned? Yeah? We go from the specific, which is the broadcast. Yeah? Yeah. The specific. What's the opposite of the specific? The universal? Yeah, there's a lot of other words we could use. There's no signal in this radio, is there? No? Consubstantiality. That's a word that I guarantee you weren't taught in high school or college. Consubstantiality. Two or more things that makes something. I don't care if you drink soda or not. This is not about soda, but when we say like Coca-Cola or Pepsi, yeah, it's this thing, we know what it tastes like. Most people do, right? Pretty sure, it doesn't have an enormous amount of ingredients in it, and of course they're not good for you. We're not talking about that. But it's made up of a lot of different stuff. All of those things come together to give life to, and it's of course not really life, to what we call Pepsi or Coke that we're familiar with drinking. So when people actually talk about death or perishing, they're talking about the breakup of two or more things. Do you really think there is a signal? Here's a real serious question. Is there a signal in this radio? This is a serious, really, really a serious question. Is there a signal in this radio?
Frequency mode. South winds. Up.
What I'm hearing, of course it's just the radio analogy, is life. That's what they used to say back in the days when radio came out. Man, a jukebox is alive, bro. Whatever. Man, it's kicking. It's alive. It's alive. People start dancing at the jukebox or the early AM/FM stations. They listen to music. It's kind of a fascinating invention if you actually think about it. Back in the day where people were living up in the hills, there was like 2 radio stations like 30 miles that way, and they could tune in, music. Man, it's alive. It's absolutely amazing. I mean, of course, we're also jaded now. We take all of that for granted. But is there any signal in that radio? Is there a soul in the body? Now, a superficial, unintelligent person would, of course, make the conclusion, say, is there any soul in the body? And I would emphatically say, no, there is no soul in the body. It's completely ridiculous. Well, you're a nihilist. You're a soul tonight. It's like, no, I'm not. I said there's no soul in the body. There's no little people in the TV. There's no actual fire inside this iMac. Of course, I've talked about this endlessly, but there's a great word, consubstantiality. It is that which makes up two or more things to present itself as something that we're all familiar with. So what happens when we die? And of course, as I said, the answer is what makes you think you are that which dies? What? We have to make a distinction between Esse and Essentia. Yeah, there's two great words. This is why I should have learned more Latin. However, there's not much that's intelligent that's written in Latin except for the Metaphysics de Divina Proportione and Theoria Philosophiae Naturalis. That's a great book. You can download that free, written by Roger Boskevich, Theoria Philosophiae Naturalis. I love it when I tell people to read that book because you can't even read one page, most people that is, 99% of people. Can't even read one page without your brain melting. I love it. I love people say, people come to me and say, I tried to read that book. I read one page and my brain melted. Oh my God. I love it when people try to read that book. That was Nikola Tesla's favorite book, by the way. Theoria Philosophiae Naturalis, or Theory of Natural Philosophy by Roger Boskevich. Those are great. You should try to read a page or two of that. Half of it's in Latin and the other half of it's in English. Great read. Translation thereof. Latter-day translation from the Latin. So people's idea of parish, of course, is the breakup of two or more things. Someone made a comment in my YouTube, and it's accurate. They say religious people say, you don't understand because you don't believe. Whereas Ken says, meaning me, you don't understand because you just have beliefs. Very, very accurate. That's one of the wisest comments I've read. I read every comment, by the way. One of the wisest comments I've read in a long time. I got to repeat that. It's so good. Religious people say, you don't understand because you don't believe. Believe! You know how they slap the book? You believe, brother! You're sitting there, they're pounding the book, right? You don't understand because you don't believe. Well, the accurate statement of that, metaphysical one be, is you don't understand because you're just full of beliefs. Very accurate. Not totally accurate, but, it's extremely accurate. Esse versus Essentia. Esse, of course, is existence. This is empirical or existential life. Yeah? Esse. The broadcast, when we turn on the radio, is Esse.
Up to 10 miles an hour.
This is the consubstantiality between spirit and matter. The radio and all its components, of course, would be matter. In the case of a human body, the antenna is water, because water is the holographic and the only perfect incommensurable geometry in the entire universe. The only one. There's a million different triangles, a gazillion different polygons, blah, 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 blah. But it's the only one, the water molecule. I guess I have that tattooed right here in green. When you actually take this in triplicate, it makes up the Pythagorean pentagram. Oh my goodness! There's not a single person on this earth, and I poop you not. You say, the Pythagorean pentagram, the symbol of the Pythagoreans. Not the New Age stuff and all these, white lighters and crystal rubbers. I got a crystal right here. I rub the crystal. The crystal rubber is like, oh, man, I've got nothing to do with those people. You ask a person, says, why was the pentagram the symbol of the Pythagorean? No, nobody's got a clue. Nobody's got a clue. But that's the reason why. It's the only perfect incommensurable geometry. So water is that antenna. Yep. People don't think about this stuff because it doesn't make them money and it doesn't do a lot of stuff that they need for essential life. Esse, existential existence. This persona non grata, Bob, Sue, Larry, that which we think we are. That thing we actually see in the mirror when we brush our teeth. Essentia. That's different. That's the transcendent self. Yeah, that would be the signal itself, which is under modulation. Yeah, and is tuned by this. Yeah, this radio, or in the case of me or you or anybody else, tuned by the water. Not that the water is actively or water is alive. Water is the antenna for the manifestation of life. Because without water, there is no such thing as life. Yeah. Everybody on this planet, ironically, knows that's true. With no water, no life, right? Right? Because every human being's a pile of dust, right? And my dead wife's ashes are about 15 feet that way in the back room. Yeah. You know what's in that box? It's nothing but effing dust. There's no life without water. There's a reason, and of course the Pythagoreans didn't know that this was also, too, the geometry of water. But they knew that this was the only perfect incommensurable geometry in the entire universe. And it made yugata. There's no translation. There's these fascinating Greek words for which there's no translation. Logos. It's like, well, you could translate it. There's a lot of things you could translate logos as. Logos, euristos dias, ananke, toma, and yugata. There's about 50 different words. Like, there ain't no translation for it. So Essentia being the transcendent principle, the signal before this radio. Yeah. Just make a simple little analogy about light and the absolute. Well, you want to use the word God, it doesn't make any difference to me. I could care less. I hardly think that light returns to God by rotation of the wheel. We're talking about the center. In the case of a wagon wheel, you know, this hole in the center, just like everything that we have in our body, there are these black centers, our eyes, our ears, nose, mouth, so on and so forth. Hardly think that light returns to God by the rotation of the wheel, but rather when the wheel is stopped, and of course we have the felly, we have the hub. Of course, the periphery, of course, is sansara, which literally means to go round and round. Sansara, meaning with going around and around. Sansarati. And I recently made a video about the wheel. But rather, when the wheel is stopped, the circumference is reduced to the center. Then the centrifugal rays by which the circumference was, so to say, pushed out or returned on itself returns to the source. Heraclitus specifically says the way up and the way down are both the same. The wheel continues to turn until the circumference is contracted to the motionless center. Doesn't that sound a whole lot like the plane of inertia that we see at the center of a magnet? Doesn't it sound like that? Doesn't it sound like it's exactly like that? The rolling up of time and space, you know, the contraction of the felly into the hub. Of course, none of us think of a wheel contracting in upon itself, but people are confusing esse, or existential existence, because existence even itself means to be outside of yourself. Existence, to be or to stand outside of yourself. I.e. esse, people are always, and perpetually so, this is the premise of genuine metaphysics, people are always confusing esse with essentia. Genuine being with a capital B. If you want to use the word self with a capital S, there's always also two selves in every ancient monistic metaphysics, both Greek, Indian, and Egyptian. You know, that self you see in the mirror and the transcendent self, which would be the signal, the transcendent signal, which is not in the radio, which is not in the body. The consubstantiality of these two things under harmony working together, which is the meaning of the word yugata. It actually means more than that. I take like countless videos to explain yugata. Also takes many videos to explain the euristos dias. Isn't that fascinating? It takes so many things just to explain one word. I have two huge books back there, and they both fail at it. One tries to explain the word nanke, which is crudely translated as necessity, and the other one tries to explain toma. They both fail at it. Fascinating. So people are confusing esse with essentia. And there's a whole lot of people that are fascinated with metaphysics, but without understanding this fundamental thing of the consubstantiality of two or more things, and the transcendent principle, which is not in the body, it's not in the radio, yeah? I also, too, have a hard time understanding the euristos dias. They have a hard time understanding extrinsic attribute. Here's a nice parlor trick. offer to pay somebody $100 if they can think of anything, real or unreal, you know, unreal like a unicorn or a leprechaun, if they can think of anything in this universe that doesn't have at least one attribute, because it is completely 100,000 million billion % impossible. That which the good is also, too, that which the good does. However, the word does is crude. It's like saying that which light does is illumination. But what's the distinction between light and illumination? Principle and attribute, the eiristostaias. This is also, too, the reason why. This is something somebody should spend a week thinking about. Why is it the first 5 digits of the Fibonacci sequence are 1, 1, 2, 3, 5? Why are the first 2 digits 1 and 1? Why is the only digit missing 4? 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Literally, you could spend a week thinking about this, and you would understand. You literally, I mean this literally, I said literally 100 times already. If you spent a week or a few days or however, it depends on how wise you are, understanding and thinking about, true understanding, why the first 5 digits of the Fibonacci sequence are 1, 1, 2, 3, 5. Why are the first 2 1 and 1? Why is the third digit 2? Why is the only number missing 4? Which I've explained that a million times. The number for time, which of course also too is a word for death, because time and death are the exact same thing. Anything that undergoes time undergoes death, vice versa. And why is the 5th digit also the accurate 5th? Yeah, because this is 1 instead of 2. 4 is missing. Why is 5 right there? If you actually understood all of that from beginning to end, truly understand it, made it yours, you would literally have a primer of metaphysics. You'd actually have a primer of metaphysics. The Greeks called the second one, by the way, the eiristostaias. Yeah? They call this 5th one ontos. This one, of course, is the agathon. Yeah? The agathon, the eiristostaias. These are mass and matter. If you understood that, you would understand a whole lot. But nobody really cares about this stuff anymore. They did millennia ago. That's when people weren't concerned about paying for, like I have to and you have to, gas, water, electric, phone, cable, cell, house insurance, car insurance, property taxes, regular taxes from the evil government. You know, that evil entity. It's just constant tithering motion. Agitation of every kind, by the way. There's nobody cares. I ain't going to pay my bills. I'm not going to spend mental energy thinking about that. Well, you should, because it's the only thing that actually matters. Yeah, but I got a house insurance bill. Because today I even got a house insurance bill in the mail. Probably the same as you, even though if you didn't get it today. It's the same nonsense. That's the reason why nobody cares. Well, people do care. Like, I really want to care, but I got to pay the bills. I suffer this plague, and it is a plague upon the world. It is a serious plague. You just need a roof over your head, food, clothing, and shelter is all you need, you know? But no. You know, there's perpetual bills. I gotta have my electricity. I gotta have my Netflix. The world is de-evolving. Unfortunately. And it's de-evolving at a faster and faster and faster rate. It's like riding downhill. It's just speeding up. Soon it's going to reach the bottom of the hill, and then all hell is going to break loose. I'll edit that out of this video. Even though it's totally the truth. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely day. Life is short. Fill it with importance. As was once said by a philosopher, the unexamined life is not worth living. You know, it is important. People don't examine their life. They're all about more, buy, spend, work harder. Isn't that horrible? That we have all this technology and all this stuff, and life is just way more miserable. It's like, yeah, but we live longer. Yeah. What's worse, living a shorter, fuller life or a longer, miserable life? Right now I'm pontificating. I'll edit that out of this video. Thanks so much for watching. Goodbye.